Kai Yureng stands atop a jagged peak, his silhouette cutting through the sunset as he stares down at the world below, dismissing the entire realm as nothing more than small. He reaches out, his hand grasping at the fading light of the horizon, questioning if the vast expanse of the Jianghu is truly as pathetic and limited as it seems. He recalls the former martial arts alliance leader, the man who ignited the great Orthodox demonic war, only to be cut down by Kai Yureng in a single, effortless strike. He remembers the Black Dragon King, the supposed apex of the unorthodox faction, who was so utterly broken by his presence that the legendary warrior actually wet himself in fear. He reflects on the master of the soul-destroying pavilion, a coward who hid in the shadows, and realizes with a heavy heart that there is simply no one left to challenge him. The heavenly demon stands tall, his silver hair flowing as he admits to the crushing weight of his own existence, declaring that throughout heaven and earth, he alone is supreme. He looks up, his piercing eyes narrowing as he senses a shift in the atmosphere, a sudden, inexplicable disturbance that catches the attention of the strongest man alive. The sky itself begins to warp and tear, revealing a swirling, cosmic void that defies all martial logic, forcing him to look up and gasp at the impossible sight. A massive, dark rift tears through the heavens, pulsing with an ancient and terrifying energy that makes even the peerless Kai Yureng pause in genuine, shocked anticipation. He clenches his fist, his aura flaring as he prepares to strike at the very fabric of reality, finally finding a threat worthy of his absolute godlike power. Kai Yureng erupts in a display of raw, purple-hued fury, his eyes burning with the intensity of a man who has finally found a mystery he cannot immediately crush. He gasps as the sheer, overwhelming aura of the rift batters his senses, forcing the peerless heavenly demon to admit that a challenge of this magnitude is truly unprecedented. The fabric of the sky itself shatters into a swirling, cosmic vortex of impossible energy, marking the exact moment the world of the island began to fundamentally change. 10 years have bled away into the void, leaving Kai Yureng to sustain himself on the island's bounty, his legendary strength now tempered by a decade of absolute isolation. He casually inspects a piece of roasted meat, his legendary, battle-hardened face showing nothing but the mundane boredom of a man who has conquered every beast in his path. He tears into the meal with the ferocity of a wild animal, his sharp teeth and rugged expression proving that even the Supreme Master has adapted to this savage life. He sits atop the carcass of a massive, fallen monster, casually chewing his food while the sheer scale of his dominance over this hellish landscape becomes painfully obvious. He pauses mid-bite, his piercing eyes shifting toward the horizon as he senses a sudden, jarring disturbance that breaks the monotony of his decade-long, lonely reign. The island's brutal reality is laid bare, a place where elixirs grow like weeds and monsters roam, all governed by the singular, unforgiving law of the strongest. He leaps from his kill with effortless grace, his mind racing as he realizes that while he is the undisputed predator of this island, something else is coming. Kai Yureng stares into the distance, his legendary spirit weary as he questions the true value of his peerless strength when the only reward is endless, soul-crushing isolation. He wanders through the mist, his purple aura trailing behind him like a ghost of his former glory, haunted by the memories of the life he left behind. He drifts into a melancholy reverie, picturing the bickering messengers and the ambitious kings who once vied for his attention, realizing just how much he misses the chaos. His gaze drifts toward the horizon where the sea meets the sky, recalling his failed attempts to break free from this prison and the terrifying void that waits beyond. Suddenly, the dense canopy of the island forest is pierced by an unnatural, brilliant flash of light that cuts through the shadows like a jagged blade. He stops dead in his tracks, his piercing eyes widening as he processes the anomaly, his instincts screaming that something has finally breached his stagnant world. The heavenly demon surges forward with explosive speed, his purple aura igniting as he tears through the underbrush, desperate to reach the source of the mysterious glow. He lands with a heavy thud, his boots crushing the forest floor as he surveys the area, his senses locked onto the strange energy radiating from the ground. He looms over the source of the light, his expression shifting from boredom to intense, focused curiosity as he realizes this is no ordinary beast or natural phenomenon. He stands before the blinding, ethereal glow, his heart racing with the thrill of the unknown as he prepares to uncover the secret that has finally shattered his silence. Kai Yureng presses his palm against the smooth, cold surface of the wall, his instincts immediately flagging the material as something entirely alien to the natural world. He recoils as a sudden, blinding pulse of red energy erupts from the structure, a defensive reaction that forces the legendary master to guard his senses. His eyes widen in genuine shock as he stares at the glowing barrier, his mind racing to categorize this strange, man-made mechanism that defies all known martial logic. He stands before the isolated, box-like building, his silver hair catching the light as he stares at the door, wondering what kind of secrets lie behind such a bizarre threshold. He pushes the door open with a cautious, calculated movement, his hand hovering near his blade as he peers into the dim, artificial light of the unknown chamber. He steps into the room, his voice echoing into the silence as he calls out, half expecting a hidden master to reveal themselves from the shadows of this strange office. He sinks into the plush, ergonomic chair, his battle-hardened body relaxing into the unexpected comfort of a seat designed for a world he cannot possibly comprehend. He lets out a low, contemplative hum, his piercing purple eyes scanning the room as he begins to appreciate the sheer, baffling luxury of this anomalous environment. He leans back, his gaze fixated on the wall of black stone slabs that line the room, feeling the weight of a mystery that far surpasses any challenge from the Jianghu. He reaches out to touch a small, glowing button on the console, his curiosity piqued by the faint, rhythmic hum of power emanating from the mysterious, shiny stone. Kai Yureng sits transfixed before the glowing screen, his finger hovering in the air as he realizes this isn't just a window, but a gateway to another world. The screen flickers with cryptic data, flashing between alien symbols and the familiar script of the Central Plains, leaving the heavenly demon to grapple with the term cyborg. His eyes narrow in deep contemplation as he processes the strange, foreign lexicon, wondering how such a bizarre concept could possibly exist within the confines of his reality. A digital chime rings out, announcing the arrival of a platform called Sea Witch, welcoming the legendary warrior to a broadcast network that spans across the very stars. The heavenly demon's face is bathed in a cold, blue light, his expression shifting from stoic indifference to absolute, jaw-dropping bewilderment at the sight of the digital interface. He watches the screen with growing intensity, seeing a chaotic feed of strangers and bizarre creatures, realizing that he is being watched by an audience from beyond. The display shifts to reveal a young man with messy orange hair, a grin that screams trouble, and a confidence that makes the heavenly demon's blood boil. Kai Yureng stares at the face of magic genius Romero, his eyes locking onto the foreigner who dares to treat his existence as nothing more than a cheap spectacle. The screen erupts with the announcement of a 50,000 cookie mission, a challenge that marks the beginning of a conflict the heavenly demon never saw coming. Romero raises his hand, summoning a torrent of hellfire that dances across the digital display, while the chat erupts in a frenzy of mockery at the heavenly demon's expense. Kai Yureng lunges forward with the lethal precision of a predator, his eyes glowing with a terrifying, supernatural intensity as he prepares to dismantle this arrogant intruder. But the air erupts into a blinding, scorching inferno of magical flames, forcing the heavenly demon to recoil as he realizes his opponent is playing by entirely different rules. He lets out a primal, guttural roar of frustration, his composure shattering as he finds himself unable to simply crush this digital pest with a flick of his wrist. Romero just smirks, his confidence radiating through the screen as he mocks the ancient master, casually suggesting that if he wants to compete, he should upgrade his arsenal. Kai Yureng stares at the display in absolute disbelief, his mind struggling to reconcile the strange, non-martial energy pulsing from the screen with the world he once knew. He reaches out, his hand trembling slightly as he touches the cold, glowing interface, desperate to force an answer from the mysterious, mocking face of the foreigner. Suddenly, the broadcast shifts to a succulent, glistening piece of dampo pork, the sight of the legendary dish cutting through his rage like a physical blow. He watches, mesmerized and hungry, as a woman on the feed takes a massive, blissful bite of the very meal he hasn't tasted in a decade of isolation. The heavenly demon freezes, his legendary stoicism completely obliterated by the sight of his absolute favorite food, his heart skipping a beat in pure, unadulterated shock. And as the reality of the situation crashes down on him, his parched salivary glands betray his godlike status, leaving him drooling in a pathetic, starving stupor. Kai Yureng leans into the glowing monitor, his face contorted in a mix of confusion and desperate hunger as he demands to know how to consume the digital feast. He bares his teeth, the frustration of a decade spent chewing on nothing but bland monster meat boiling over into a raw, primal demand for real sustenance. His fingers dance frantically across the keyboard, his legendary martial focus now entirely redirected toward mastering this alien interface to bridge the gap between him and the screen. The charismatic streamer Snow Wagon appears, his signature domino mask and flamboyant purple blazer signaling that the broadcast is in full swing. He gestures grandly, breaking down the history of the Great Cataclysm for his audience, while the cosmic vortex of the dimensional merge swirls behind him. He highlights the 4 distinct worlds that collided, showcasing the mages, the cyborgs, the martial artists, and the hunters who now share this fractured reality. The broadcast shifts to a terrifying display of the chaos that followed, showing a massive dragon tearing through the city as humanity fought for its very survival. The chat explodes with a massive donation, prompting Snow Wagon to grin as he acknowledges the viewer's demand to skip the history lesson and get to the action. The streamer taps his device with a flourish, announcing his intent to use the food warp technology to summon a fresh drink right into his hand. He explains the mechanics of the warp with a smug confidence, detailing how the fusion of cyberpunk science and fantasy magic has fundamentally changed the world forever. The mysterious machine hums with a rhythmic, synthetic pulse, its glowing interface confirming that while inanimate objects can be warped with ease, the transportation of living beings remains a dangerous, unsolved puzzle. The charismatic Snow Wagon flashes a practiced, winning smile at the camera, his gloved hand raised in a final, polished farewell as he reminds his legion of followers to smash that like button and subscribe. Kai Yureng stares at the screen with wide, disbelieving eyes, his breath hitching as the realization hits him that he has finally stumbled upon the ultimate key to his salvation. He mutters to himself, his mind racing with the implications of this digital broadcast, calculating how he can leverage this platform to secure both the riches and the culinary delights he has craved for 10 long years. His fingers hover over the mechanical keys, his legendary, battle-hardened hands moving with a newfound, frantic purpose as he prepares to initiate his own unprecedented broadcast. The screen flickers to life with a sharp, digital chime, officially marking the start of the Heavenly Demon's first live stream as the red indicator light blazes with authority. He leans in close, his silver hair framing a face etched with deep, existential doubt as he catches his reflection and wonders if he looks more like a legendary master or a common, wandering beggar. The chat interface suddenly pings with a notification, signaling that a user named Wee Deer has stumbled into the stream, instantly shattering the silence of the Heavenly Demon's lonely world. Kai Yureng jumps back in genuine, unadulterated panic, his legendary reflexes betraying him as he lets out a startled curse at the sudden, unexpected intrusion of a digital stranger. The screen refreshes to show a new viewer named Oaktree has joined the fray, immediately cutting through the tension with a blunt, skeptical question that challenges the very identity of the man behind the camera. Kai Yureng stands bathed in a divine, purple-hued aura, his eyes burning with the absolute, unshakable conviction that he is the one and only Heavenly Demon. The chat feed turns toxic as the user Oaktree mocks his dramatic introduction, calling it cringe before abruptly disconnecting and leaving the master in a deafening, digital silence. He sits alone in the dark, the glow of his monitors casting long, lonely shadows across the room as he processes the stinging rejection of the modern world. The Heavenly Demon looks into the void of his own reflection, his voice trembling with the crushing weight of a decade spent in isolation as he questions his relevance. He pauses, his mind flashing back to the chaotic, fragmented memories of the Great Cataclysm and the undeniable truth that 4 distinct worlds had violently collided. His hand trembles as he grips the computer mouse, the physical manifestation of his frustration vibrating through his fingers as he accepts his forgotten status. He stares at the screen, his cursor hovering over the exit button as he realizes that in this brutal new era, to be forgotten is truly a fate worse than death. A surge of dark, violet energy erupts from his body, his eyes glowing with a terrifying, renewed resolve as he declares his intent to conquer the Sea Witch platform. He leaps from his seat and launches himself into the night sky with a blinding flash of speed, leaving the mysterious office behind to hunt for his destiny. He reflects on the broadcast rankings he skimmed earlier, realizing with a grimace that the top of the food chain is currently dominated by young, beautiful, and popular maidens. Kai Yureng stares into the abyss of his own reflection, his mind haunted by the biting, digital rejection that questions why anyone would ever want to watch an old man. He looks up toward the night sky, his gaze locking onto a beast that dares to cross his path, fueling his burning, singular obsession to capture the world's attention. The Heavenly Demon descends like a vengeful god, his purple aura tearing through the darkness as he strikes down the creature with a display of overwhelming, lethal force. He grips the jagged, glowing remnant of his kill, his knuckles white with the intensity of a man who has finally decided to stop playing games and start winning. He holds the pulsating crystal aloft, his eyes glowing with a terrifying, dark purpose as he declares that this is the only path for the true Heavenly Demon. He stalks through the forest, his movements heavy with the realization that the body rejuvenation he once dismissed as a trivial annoyance is now his only hope. He kneels before the pile of monster hearts, his eyes narrowing as he senses the massive, volatile energy trapped within the glowing, violet shards of the beast. He sits in the stillness of the woods, clutching the crystal as he realizes that with precise control, he can reshape his very essence to transcend his limitations. The Heavenly Demon enters a deep, meditative trance, his purple aura expanding to consume the forest as he sends a silent, chilling promise of war to the platform. Back in the shadows of his workstation, he clicks the mouse with a cold, calculated precision, ready to begin the final phase of his digital conquest. Small streamer Hunter 13 sits bathed in the cold, blue glow of his monitors, his identity as a digital benefactor defined by his singular, obsessive mission to find and fund the next big thing. He suddenly freezes as his eyes lock onto a fresh, unsuspecting channel, his pulse quickening with the thrill of the hunt as he realizes he has finally found a target. The screen flickers with the debut of Heavenly Demon Chan, a mysterious newcomer whose presence on the Sea-Witch platform is as baffling as it is undeniably captivating to the veteran viewer. He watches with a flushed, manic grin, completely enamored by the strange, contrasting tone of this legendary warrior who now speaks with an unexpected, adorable charm. His fingers fly across the mechanical keyboard, tapping out a message with the frantic energy of a man who has just discovered a hidden treasure in the vast digital wasteland. The Heavenly Demon Chan responds with a sharp, confident smirk, her eyes glinting with the realization that she has finally hooked a viewer who is willing to play by her rules. He stares at the screen in pure, unadulterated awe, his heart hammering against his ribs as he witnesses the legendary master adopt a playful feline persona for the camera. She leans into the frame, her expression shifting into a calculated, mo-infused performance that sends the chat into a total frenzy of adoration and digital worship. He lets out a primal, ecstatic roar of devotion, his entire being consumed by the sheer, overwhelming joy of finally finding a streamer worthy of his absolute fanatical support. The screen displays the triumphant return of Kai Yureng, now fully embracing his new identity as the beautiful, reborn Heavenly Demon Chan, ready to conquer the modern world one stream at a time. The air crackles with violet energy as the Heavenly Demon explains the ancient art of enlightenment, a process that typically grants a master a youthful, rejuvenated form. But he reveals that he delayed this transformation for years because he found the entire ordeal to be a tedious, bothersome chore that he simply couldn't be bothered with. Yet by consuming the potent magic stones of demonic beasts, he eventually unlocked a unique constitution that allowed him to manipulate his very essence at will. And now, the absolute strongest being under the heavens has successfully birthed the ultimate broadcasting physique, perfectly tailored to dominate the digital landscape of the modern world. He drops the bombshell of his true age to his viewers, and the chat immediately goes wild, completely losing their minds over the hilarious contrast of his appearance. He watches the chaos unfold with a wicked smirk, realizing that his calculated decision to study the trends of the internet was the smartest move he ever made. A massive donation notification flashes on the screen, and he leans into the persona, purring a cute thank you that leaves him feeling genuinely amused by the attention. He performs a cutesy gesture for his audience, fully embracing the gap moe that has his viewers clutching their chests in a state of absolute digital euphoria. He reflects on the decade of silence he endured on that island, realizing that this sudden, frantic connection with thousands of strangers is nothing short of a miracle. And as he smiles into the camera, he admits that this newfound, electrifying sensation of human interaction is exactly the kind of thrill he has been hunting for. The Heavenly Demon Chan stares at the screen in absolute disbelief, her eyes wide as she processes the staggering donation of 100,000 cookies. She mutters to herself about the sheer scale of the contribution, realizing that her debut stream has already surpassed her wildest expectations. She acknowledges the heavy lifting done by the mysterious Nugu excavator, recognizing that her success is tethered to the whims of her newfound digital benefactors. She glances at her stream statistics, noting the modest but growing audience of 31 peak viewers and 11 followers. She lets out a soft, satisfied chuckle, fully aware that none of this would have been possible without her strategic transformation into this adorable, youthful vessel. She slams her fist onto the desk with a sudden, jarring intensity that catches her chat off guard, prompting a flurry of confused and amused reactions from her viewers. She declares her intent to begin a mukbang, her aura flaring with a dark, violet energy that contrasts sharply with the casual nature of her announcement. She ignores the playful mockery of the chat, her focus narrowing entirely on the culinary prize she has been craving for an eternity. She watches with bated breath as the food warp technology activates, the shimmering portal manifesting the glistening, tender dampo pork right before her eyes. She gazes at the succulent dish with stars in her eyes, her legendary composure completely shattered by the intoxicating aroma of the meal as her chat begs someone to wipe the drool from her chin. The Heavenly Demon Chan hovers her chopsticks over the succulent, glistening pork, her legendary focus narrowing down to a single, desperate bite that promises to end her decade of culinary misery. She closes her eyes, savoring the long-awaited texture as she realizes this is the first taste of true civilization she has experienced in 10 agonizing, isolated years. The flavor hits her with the force of a mountain-shattering strike, and she is instantly reduced to a weeping mess, her stoic mask completely shattered by the sheer, overwhelming ecstasy of the meal. She continues to shovel the pork into her mouth with a frantic, unrefined speed, her eyes sparkling with tears of pure, unadulterated joy as the chat watches her breakdown in real time. The intensity of her reaction causes her to choke, a sudden, pathetic coughing fit that leaves the Supreme Master gasping for air while her audience questions her sanity. She sniffles, wiping away her tears while admitting to the chat that the food is simply too divine to handle, her legendary dignity sacrificed at the altar of high-quality pork. The viewers roast her relentlessly for crying over a simple dish, but she remains blissfully lost in the flavor, her heart finally finding a shred of comfort in this strange new world. She pauses, her eyes red and swollen from the emotional outburst, and offers a sincere, humble apology to her audience for losing her composure over such a mundane luxury. The next day arrives with a fresh, digital dawn, and the heavenly demon-chan logs back onto the Sea Witch platform, her resolve hardened for the second day of her grand conquest. She greets her growing legion of followers with a confident, crossed-arm pose, only to be caught off guard as a sudden, massive influx of new viewers begins to flood her channel. Heavenly Demon Chan stares at the screen in genuine bewilderment as a flood of new users suddenly pours into her channel, their names flashing across the interface like a digital storm. She watches the viewer count skyrocket past 38, her mind struggling to comprehend the rapid expansion of her audience as the chat continues to scroll at an impossible speed. The numbers tick upward toward 42, leaving the legendary master completely stunned as she realizes her popularity is surging far beyond her initial, modest expectations. She receives a massive donation from her loyal benefactor, Nugu Excavator 13, who urges her to capitalize on her viral fame by reviewing the clips that turned her into a sensation. She pulls up the viral footage of her own tearful breakdown over the Dongpo pork, watching with a mix of embarrassment and pride as the clip dominates the platform's rankings. She acknowledges the strategic brilliance of her benefactor, offering a formal and slightly awkward word of thanks that sends the chat into a frenzy of amusement and adoration. A mysterious, high-tech device hums to life on her desk, signaling the arrival of a new piece of equipment she purchased with her hard-earned streaming revenue. She strikes a playful, cutesy pose for her growing legion of fans, fully leaning into the persona that has captivated the modern world and solidified her status as a top-tier streamer. She reflects on the wisdom of her investment, noting that the quality of her content is directly tied to the tools she employs to entertain her audience. She leans into the camera with a sharp, confident glint in her eyes, announcing to her viewers that she is shifting gears to host her very first gaming stream. After scouring the Sea Witch platform for what feels like an eternity, the Heavenly Demon realizes that the vast majority of the gaming world is obsessed with one specific medium. And that medium is the virtual reality headset, a piece of technology that has become the absolute gold standard for anyone looking to make a name for themselves. He turns his attention to the most dominant title in the entire industry, a high-octane spectacle known as Real Fight 99 that commands the attention of every major streamer. He recalls the chaotic, high-energy broadcasts of Magic Genius Romero and the countless other brawlers who have turned this digital arena into their personal playground for fame and fortune. The chat immediately grills her on her lack of experience, demanding to know if she has ever even touched the game, to which she honestly admits this is her first time. The viewers lose their minds at the revelation of a pure newbie entering the fray, but she remains unfazed, calmly announcing that she will permit their backseating as she logs in. She pulls the headset over her eyes, the digital world flickering to life as she prepares to step into a reality that is entirely constructed of code and light. She emerges into the virtual grid, her eyes widening in genuine, unfiltered awe as she takes in the impossible, glowing geometry of the real project world. She marvels at the sensation of being transported, noting that if not for the floating chat window keeping her tethered to her audience, she would have thought she was truly teleported. The system greets her with a cold, synthetic welcome, informing the legendary master that before she can begin her conquest of Real Fight 99, her combat power must be measured. The system drones on with a cold, mechanical command for the Heavenly Demon to remain perfectly still, while the calibration process initiates. As the chat erupts in a flurry of speculation, with viewers betting on her combat power and laughing at the idea of her scoring a measly 5. The system finally finishes its scan, but instead of a clean numerical value, the screen displays a baffling and unprecedented triple question mark. Kai Yureng stands frozen in the digital void, her face a mask of pure confusion as she stares at the screen, wondering why the machine is failing to categorize her. She turns to her audience with a genuine, slightly annoyed question, demanding to know why everyone is acting so strangely over a simple measurement. The chat goes into a total meltdown, frantically explaining that combat power is the holy grail of accuracy and that they have never seen a question mark in their lives. She tries to brush off the anomaly with a nonchalant wave, but the chat isn't having it, roasting her for being a literal question mark collector. A massive donation from Cherry Oda cuts through the noise, dropping the bombshell that her combat power directly dictates the game's difficulty. The heavenly demon's eyes widen as the realization hits her. Higher power means more monsters, and she is suddenly forced to take this digital measurement seriously. She clicks on a link provided by her benefactor, Nugu Excavator 13, and is greeted by the flamboyant face of Snow Wagon, the legendary streamer who is about to school her on the harsh realities of virtual combat. The heavenly demon Chan stands locked in a heated debate, pointing an accusatory finger as she demands to know why the world's powerhouses didn't just stay put after the Great Cataclysm. The screen erupts in a chaotic display of fire and destruction, illustrating how those same powerhouses tore the world apart in a desperate, bloody bid to prove their absolute supremacy. Innocent lives were snuffed out and entire zones were leveled in the crossfire, leaving the world in a state of ruin that made the threat of future rifts feel like a total catastrophe. The Seawitch Corporation swooped in to save the day, introducing virtual reality to the masses and effectively giving humanity a new digital playground to escape their fractured reality. They built an entirely independent network to house their virtual system, a massive technological leap that was so transformative it earned the title of the Second Great Cataclysm. The system relies on a metric known as combat power, a strict and highly accurate stat that serves as the gold standard for measuring a person's true strength. It functions by converting every ounce of mana or internal energy into a raw numerical value, though the actual principles behind this magic science hybrid remain a complete mystery. Heavenly Demon Chan bristles with irritation, her chat roasting her for being suspicious of Sea Witch's sudden, high-tech emergence while she struggles to process the complex alien terminology. She crosses her arms in a huff, dismissing the talk of dream-based OOPARTS as she demands that her chat keep their long-winded explanations to 3 lines or less. The installation of Real Fight 99 finally hits 100%, and as the game launches, the chat goes wild with anticipation for the carnage the Heavenly Demon is about to unleash. The Heavenly Demon Chan stares into the digital void, her eyes glowing with a supernatural, swirling intensity that signals her readiness to dominate this artificial realm. She surveys the sprawling, virtual architecture of the real project world, her gaze sweeping over the ancient-style structures that feel hauntingly familiar to her. A wave of nostalgia washes over her as she takes in the scenery, her expression softening for a fleeting moment as she acknowledges the uncanny resemblance to her past. The system prompts her with a tutorial request, but she dismisses it with a wave of her hand, her arrogance flaring as she declares she has no need for such trivial guidance. She stands tall with her back to the camera, her posture radiating the supreme confidence of a master who has never known the sting of defeat. Her aura erupts in a violent, purple explosion of energy, her face twisting into a wicked grin as she laughs at the absurdity of the challenge ahead. She strikes a defiant pose, shouting to the heavens that she has no equals, while the chat explodes with a mix of disbelief and mockery at her sheer audacity. She explains her simple, brutal strategy of depleting the enemy's health bar, her tone dripping with the dismissive arrogance of a veteran who treats combat as a mere chore. She begins to channel her internal energy, the ground beneath her feet cracking under the pressure as she prepares to warm up her body for the coming slaughter. She shifts into a lethal martial arts stance, her movements so fluid and precise that the chat is left stunned, realizing that the Heavenly Demon is actually manifesting real mana within the game. The chat erupts in a frenzy of speculation, debating whether this mysterious newcomer is a hidden master or just a prodigy who somehow knows the ancient arts of internal energy. Heavenly Demon Chan stares at the glowing interface, her eyes narrowing as a sudden, intrusive notification for a duel from the notorious Grand Mahan Cart Thief flashes before her. The chat goes into a full-blown panic, warning her that this infamous troll is a high-level menace who specializes in bullying fresh players for his own twisted amusement. She pauses, her expression shifting from curiosity to a faint, dismissive smirk as she acknowledges the restriction of her current avatar, feeling only a fraction of her true power. She decides that this arrogant pest is the perfect test subject to help her calibrate her senses and get a real feel for this strange, digital battlefield. She accepts the challenge with a casual flick of her wrist, completely ignoring the frantic warnings of her viewers who fear she is walking into a trap. The notorious Grand Mahan Cart Thief appears, his face twisted into a predatory grin as he mocks the newcomer, his presence reeking of the cheap, cowardly tactics of a gunslinger. He lunges into the arena with a boastful shout, his confidence radiating through the screen as he prepares to humiliate the girl who dared to enter his domain. The system initiates the final countdown, the tension in the room spiking as the Heavenly Demon Chan stands her ground, ready to face the cold, mechanical reality of the duel. The timer hits 0 and the command to fight blares across the screen, prompting the gunslinger to reach for his weapon in a desperate, lightning-fast bid for dominance. Grandmahan Cart Thief pulls the trigger with a malicious grin, unleashing a lead projectile aimed directly at the heavenly demon Chan. He revels in the chaos, his face twisted into a manic expression as he mocks the newcomer for her supposed reliance on spamming clicks. But the air suddenly goes deathly silent as the bullet stops dead in its tracks, leaving the troll staring in absolute, uncomprehending horror. Heavenly Demon Chan moves with the grace of a phantom, her purple aura swirling as she effortlessly plucks the lethal projectile from the very air. She inspects the small, metallic object with a look of genuine curiosity, wondering aloud how such a tiny thing could be considered a weapon. The bullet clatters to the floor with a hollow ring, the sound echoing through the digital arena like a death knell for the troll's ego. Grandmahan Cart Thief recoils, his eyes wide and his skin pale as he realizes his entire reality has just been shattered by a single, impossible movement. Heavenly Demon Chan turns her gaze toward the camera, her eyes burning with a dark, predatory light as she declares that the game has finally begun. The charismatic Snow Wagon appears on screen with a flourish, his signature domino mask and flamboyant suit signaling that the broadcast is about to reach a fever pitch. He addresses the audience with a sharp observation, noting that in this post-cataclysm world, the true measure of a warrior is defined solely by their ability to dismantle a gunman. Kai Yureng stares intensely at the screen, his mind reeling from the cold, hard truth that a single bullet can end a decade of grueling, legendary training. He contemplates the tragic decline of the ancient sects, realizing that the path of the martial artist is being paved over by the convenience of modern weaponry. He stands shirtless in the dim light, his body a testament to years of struggle, yet he knows that even this peak physical condition offers no absolute safety. He watches the reflection of his own frustration in the mirror, questioning why anyone would choose the long, painful road of mastery when they could just pick up a gun. He observes the neon-drenched advertisements for sects desperate to survive, their hollow promises of power highlighting the pathetic state of a world that has forgotten true strength. The screen flashes with a sudden, sharp intensity, signaling that the core of this societal rot is far deeper and more dangerous than he ever imagined. He watches as the digital feed depicts a massive beast shrugging off standard gunfire, proving that modern weapons are nothing more than toys against the true threats of the Rift. The carnage on screen intensifies as humans turn their weapons on each other, a senseless display of violence that makes the heavenly demon's blood boil with righteous indignation. He gazes at the silhouettes of the fading masters, his heart heavy with the realization that the future of humanity is being sacrificed on the altar of laziness. Snow Wagon signs off with a flamboyant, mocking wave, leaving the heavenly demon to sit in the silence of his room, his resolve to change this broken world burning brighter than ever. Kai Yureng stands firm, his gaze fixed on the horizon as he dissects the hollow nature of modern power, realizing that these weapons are nothing but crutches for the weak. He scoffs at the sinister reliance on firearms, a pathetic shortcut that strips away the necessity of hard-earned mastery and leaves the spirit of the warrior to wither away. The heavenly demon Chan channels her internal energy, her purple aura flaring with a righteous, blinding intensity that threatens to consume the very air around her. She steps forward, her boots glowing with a lethal, violet light, as she prepares to dismantle the arrogance of a world that has forgotten the true path. She launches herself toward the gunslinger with terrifying speed, a blur of purple destruction that leaves the troll scrambling to process the sheer scale of her power. It is a single, decisive movement that shatters the digital atmosphere, a stride that bridges the gap between ancient tradition and a world tarnished by lead and gunpowder. The connection between the two fighters is severed in an instant, the metaphorical chains of the duel snapping under the weight of her overwhelming, crushing presence. She pauses for a fleeting second, her expression shifting into one of genuine, baffled confusion as she observes the pathetic state of her opponent. The gunslinger collapses into a heap of digital debris, his body failing him entirely as the chat erupts in a mix of shock and mockery at his disgraceful, trembling form. She stares down at the fallen bully with a look of utter disdain, wondering how such a frail, cowardly creature ever dared to call himself a menace to the Jianghu. Kai Yureng looks down at the incapacitated troll, her mind filled with nothing but cold disdain for a man who lacks even a shred of internal energy. She scoffs at his pathetic reliance on a firearm, viewing his entire existence as a hollow, unearned spectacle that is truly beneath her notice. The heavenly demon Chan floats above the digital arena, her purple aura radiating a divine, overwhelming power that leaves the entire platform in a state of shock. She basks in the sudden, frantic adoration of her chat, accepting the loyal tribute of her benefactor with a cutesy, feline charm that masks her lethal intent. The digital community of the Real Fight Gallery descends into absolute, unbridled chaos as the viral clip of her bullet-catching feat spreads like wildfire. Users scramble to process the impossible, debating the legitimacy of her skill, while the skeptics are forced to eat their words in the face of undeniable proof. The forums are flooded with awestruck comments, with seasoned fighters admitting that even they could never replicate such a terrifying, high-level display of martial mastery. Back in the dim, lonely glow of his workstation, the mysterious masked individual watches the stream with a knowing, ancient smirk. He taps away at his keyboard with a rhythmic, calculated precision, his fingers moving with the grace of a master who has seen it all before. He drops a casual, chilling challenge into the chat, dismissing the heavenly demon's superhuman feat as nothing more than a simple, effortless task. The mysterious masked figure watches from the shadows, his digital presence looming over the chat as he probes the heavenly demon for her true identity and title. He waits with a calculated patience, his fingers hovering over the keys as he prepares to challenge the very legitimacy of her legendary status. Kai Yureng's eyes flare with a sudden, violent intensity, her composure shattering as she reads the insulting, condescending words of the masked intruder. She bristles at the audacity of a mere spectator daring to question her, her internal energy surging as she prepares to unleash a verbal and spiritual retort. The chat feed becomes a toxic wasteland of repetitive, mindless spam, with trolls flooding the screen with claims that the cult leader is alive and mentally unstable. She stares at the relentless, scrolling text with a mix of exhaustion and growing fury, realizing that these digital pests are trying to gaslight her into doubting her own reality. She dismisses the noise with a sharp, decisive click, her mind clearing as she prepares to launch her third day of streaming with a bold, outdoor broadcast. She strikes a playful, charming pose for the camera, her feline persona fully activated as she welcomes her growing legion of fans to the stream. She watches the viewer count climb with a wicked, satisfied smirk, noting that her popularity is exploding like bamboo splitting in a summer gale. She is suddenly interrupted by a massive 10,000 cookie donation from Hako Seeker 13, her shock and delight instantly overriding her previous irritation as the stream reaches a fever pitch. Heavenly Demon Chan engages with her loyal moderator, Hako Seeker 13, sharing a moment of genuine connection as she recalls a familiar, nagging presence from her past. She directs a sharp, warning glare toward the screen, her patience wearing thin as she threatens to track down the persistent troll who keeps challenging her title. Her expression shifts into one of pure, bewildered confusion as she catches sight of the anonymous agitator, wondering just what kind of person would dedicate their life to such petty digital harassment. She dismisses the nuisance with a flick of her hand, instructing her chat to simply block the pest and ignore his desperate, attention-seeking persona. The Heavenly Demon Chan turns her attention back to her moderator, officially bestowing the title of Daily Manager upon Hako Seeker 13 in recognition of his unwavering, rapid-fire support. She watches with a smug, satisfied grin as her new manager immediately flexes his power, silencing the toxic chat for 60 seconds to restore order to her domain. A donation from a curious viewer interrupts the flow, prompting her to remind everyone that she is currently hosting a rare, outdoor broadcast in the wild. She gestures gracefully toward the lush, overgrown surroundings, explaining that she chose this unique location specifically to provide her fans with a fresh, exotic viewing experience. The chat descends into a frenzy of disbelief as viewers spot legendary, rare flora like wild ginseng, blood chrysanthemums, and mandrakes growing casually along the forest path. She glances at the screen with a knowing look, acknowledging that the bizarre, supernatural nature of her current location is just as baffling to her as it is to her audience. Kai Yureng wanders through the dense, ancient forest, her voice echoing through the stream as she demands to know if any true martial artists are watching her broadcast. She pauses to address the chat's misconceptions, questioning if they truly remember the legendary heavenly demon who once commanded the fearsome sun and moon divine cult. She scoffs at the ridiculous rumors circulating online, flatly denying that she possesses demonic horns or that she sustains herself on a diet of human blood. The chat continues to poke fun at her, suggesting that a master of her caliber should have easily crushed the 9 heroes of the past. She turns her back to the camera, her silhouette framed by the towering trees as she contemplates the tragic historical narrative that claims her cult perished in the Valley of Death. She stares intensely into the lens, her purple eyes flashing with a hidden fire as she challenges the prevailing belief that her people were wiped out during the Great Cataclysm. She strikes a powerful, confident pose, declaring her true identity to the world and laughing off the skepticism of the viewers who refuse to take her seriously. She visibly bristles with annoyance when a viewer demands a wild ginseng as proof of her power, clearly unimpressed by the audacity of her digital audience. She pulls up a community forum on her screen, highlighting the ignorant posts that claim her sect was destroyed and forgotten by history. She turns away from the digital noise and begins her trek deeper into the wilderness, announcing to her followers that she is heading toward a high place. Heavenly Demon Chan strides through the glowing undergrowth, her boots crunching on the earth as she contemplates the strange, spiritual flora that defies the island's cursed reputation. She notes the clusters of lethal death bell flowers blooming in the shadows, her brow furrowing as she questions the true, hidden nature of her longtime home. The chat goes absolutely feral with curiosity, with viewers begging for the chance to be cursed themselves if it means witnessing such a mystical, otherworldly landscape. She pushes through the final thicket of trees, her eyes widening as the dense forest canopy finally gives way to a breathtaking, panoramic view of the horizon. She stands at the edge of the precipice, her purple aura flaring as she commands her audience to behold the true, terrifying scale of the island she calls home. The sky above is a violent, swirling vortex of lightning and shadow, casting a hellish glow over the jagged peaks that stretch out into the infinite distance. A massive serpentine magic beast looms in the background, its presence confirming the extreme danger level of the terrain as the chat loses its collective mind. The landscape is a desolate, volcanic nightmare of shifting tectonic plates and eternal storms, leaving the viewers to wonder how any human could possibly survive in such a place. She pauses to address the stream, her expression turning somber as she admits that despite living here for a decade, the island remains a total, baffling mystery. The camera pans out to reveal the heavenly demon Chan standing alone against the backdrop of the apocalypse, her viewer count surging as the chat finally whispers the forbidden name of the demonic realm. The assassination squad gathers in the shadows, their leader Nam Dusik looming over a trembling Samdal as he questions how a mere child could have humiliated their ranks. The air in the room grows heavy with tension as the leader demands to know what they should do next, his patience for failure wearing dangerously thin. Peng Deokjo steps forward with a fierce, loyal intensity, his eyes burning with the conviction that an insult to one member is an insult to their entire family. Nam Dusik stares down his subordinate with a cold, ruthless gaze, declaring that he will never leave someone alone who dared to lay a hand on his kin. Samdal remains curled on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably as he admits that he was the one who provoked the conflict, his spirit completely broken by the encounter. The leader ignores the pathetic display, his voice dropping to a dangerous, icy whisper as he demands the name of the girl who turned their associate into a laughingstock. The name Heavenly Demon Chan echoes through the dark room, causing the leader's expression to shift into a sharp, predatory smirk as he processes the legendary moniker. He muses on the weight of that title, realizing that such a name is not something that should be tossed around lightly by a mere streamer. The scene shifts to a lonely, dimly lit workstation where the digital harassment continues, the screen flooded with toxic, repetitive spam that threatens to unravel the master's composure. The screen cuts to a final, chilling close-up of a vengeful face, the intruder promising to erase the heavenly demon Chan from the digital world once and for all. Snow Wagon flashes his signature grin, his domino mask gleaming as he prepares to drop some serious knowledge on the history of the terrifying demonic realm. He explains that this hellish landscape existed long before the Rift Wars, marking it as a primal, ancient territory that predates the chaos of the Great Cataclysm. The narrative shifts to the historical mage Malin, who found herself in a desperate, life-or-death sprint to escape the jaws of ravenous, otherworldly beasts. She made the split-second, reckless decision to dive headfirst into a shimmering rift, a gamble that would ultimately change the course of human history forever. She awoke in a field of vibrant, glowing flowers, her confusion mounting as she realized she had stumbled into a treasure trove of rare, magical flora. The environment was a surreal, impossible paradise where all four seasons seemed to exist in a single, harmonious breath, leaving her absolutely breathless at the discovery. But the beauty was a lethal lie, as she quickly realized she was stranded on an island crawling with apex predators of at least danger level 3. She managed to narrowly escape back through a re-emerging rift, her return serving as the definitive proof that the demonic realm was not just a myth. Scholars later analyzed the residue on her gear, discovering that the mana concentration was a staggering 30 times higher than anything found in the modern world. The experts concluded that the island's bizarre, volatile ecology was likely a direct result of this extreme, concentrated mana, confirming that the realm is a place of pure, magical danger. The digital debate rages on as the chat remains hopelessly split between those who believe the demonic realm is a myth and those convinced of its terrifying reality. The charismatic Snow Wagon takes the stage to stir the pot, questioning his audience on whether they truly believe such a legendary, forbidden place could actually exist. Kai Yureng watches the stream with a contemplative expression, her mind processing the absurdity of the situation as she prepares to sign off for the day. She muses on the bleakness of the name Demonic Realm, noting that even if the title is grim, the presence of level 1 beasts makes it a dangerous reality. She scoffs at the chat's disbelief regarding her survival, pointing out that she has yet to encounter anything on the island that could actually threaten her. She shifts her focus to the high-level intel regarding rifts, her interest piqued by the possibility that her home might be the legendary realm scholar's sphere. She reflects on the hopeful nature of her own existence, realizing that if she could survive and thrive here, perhaps the island isn't just a death trap. She prepares for an outdoor broadcast to scout the perimeter, fully aware that she needs to keep her guard up while exploring this mysterious, cursed landscape. New viewers flood the channel after seeing her viral clips, their questions about her location and the demonic realm scrolling by at a dizzying, impossible speed. She welcomes the newcomers with a sharp, confident smirk, immediately pivoting back to her culinary obsession as she prepares to feast on another plate of dampo pork. The heavenly demon Chan eyes a premium plate of dampo pork, calculating the massive 50,000 cookie premium over her previous meal and salivating at the promise of superior flavor. She scrolls through the high-end menu options, comparing the exorbitant costs of various signature dishes while wondering if any of them could possibly surpass the legendary cooking of her own cult's head chef. She gazes longingly at the screen with a wistful expression, her hand pressed against the interface as she dreams of the day she can finally afford to indulge in such culinary opulence. She finally takes a single, deliberate bite, the chopsticks hovering as she prepares to experience a taste that justifies the massive investment of her hard-earned digital currency. The flavor hits her like a revelation, and she breaks into a radiant, tearful smile, completely losing her composure while the chat roasts her for inhaling the food without even chewing. She continues to shovel the meal into her mouth with frantic, unrefined energy, her back turned to the camera as she revels in the pure, unadulterated joy of the feast. A voice from the chat urges her to slow down and savor the moment, but she pauses mid-bite, a sudden, melancholy shadow crossing her face as she admits that she wishes someone were here to share it. She laments the crushing weight of her decade-long isolation on the island, her voice barely a whisper as she confesses that she is always truly alone. The mood is abruptly shattered by a sharp, digital chime, and she looks up with a pout as the system notifies her of two incoming, unsolicited whispers. She opens the messages to find the spectral, fire-shrouded antagonist back to harass her, and she rolls her eyes, utterly unimpressed by the persistent, pathetic troll who refuses to let her eat in peace. The masked envoy looms in the digital space, his hand outstretched as he issues a final, ominous ultimatum to the heavenly demon. He dangles a massive 10 million cookie bounty as bait, demanding she surrender her iconic title if she fails to best him in their twisted wager. Kai Yureng stares at the screen with a mix of amusement and disbelief, scoffing at the sheer absurdity of the astronomical sum being offered by this digital lunatic. She brushes off the initial threat with a dismissive wave, her eyes narrowing as she prepares to confront the next wave of harassment head-on. The chat erupts as the assassination squad makes their presence known, their collective voice dripping with malice as they vow to avenge their fallen family member. The squad leader stands tall, his back to the camera as he invokes the ancient, bloody code of the martial world to justify his impending retaliation. He declares that the time for mercy has passed, promising an eye for an eye and blood for blood as he marks the streamer for total destruction. Kai Yureng remains completely unfazed by the dramatic posturing, her expression shifting into a look of cold, predatory curiosity as she wonders who exactly is behind this screen. She continues to enjoy her meal while casually mocking the assassination squad, openly questioning the legitimacy of these self-proclaimed warriors and their pathetic, dramatic threats. She laughs off their talk of blood feuds and retribution, realizing that these clowns are nothing more than free, high-quality content for her growing legion of fans. The heavenly demon Chan flashes a sharp, toothy grin while adjusting her VR headset, signaling to her audience that it is time to dive back into the digital fray. The system interface flickers to life, confirming her status as a 4-win, 0-loss combatant while leaving her combat power shrouded in the mysterious triple question mark anomaly. She clenches her fist with a frustrated pout, lamenting that despite her recent victories, she remains unranked and forced to grind through more rounds to prove her worth. She surveys the virtual arena with a look of utter boredom, complaining that the current competition is nothing but pathetic punks relying on cheap guns and cyberware. She scoffs at the idea of these modified nobodies, expressing her deep disappointment that such hollow, artificial warriors are the only ones standing in her path to glory. She strikes a confident, arms-crossed pose, her eyes burning with ambition as she demands to know what tier she will eventually reach in this digital ranking system. She studies the hierarchy of the platform, from bronze to legend, and scoffs at the triviality of it all while reaffirming her goal to reach the absolute peak. She reaches out toward the digital void, her hand glowing with internal energy as she declares that she will soon surpass the legendary heroes and demonic humans of old. The system chimes with a series of notifications, and she reaches out to accept the challenge, her eyes locked on the path toward her inevitable supreme victory. She stands before the glowing interface, her aura flaring as she prepares to face the fire moths who have been waiting in line to witness her martial arts. The digital air crackles with malice as a broadcast notification tears through the feed, announcing that the assassination squad has officially declared a blade of revenge. The squad members huddle together in their virtual den, their faces obscured by headsets as they bark orders to spam duel requests until the heavenly demon finally breaks. They are absolutely obsessed with erasing her from the platform, determined to strip away her dignity and ensure she never even thinks about the concept of a rematch. Suddenly, the system alerts the heavenly demon that she has been matched against the very troll who started this mess, the one they call the napkin serial thief. She stands in the center of the virtual arena, her eyes narrowing as she hears the taunts of her opponent, who is still reeling from the humiliation of having his bullet caught. The troll doesn't waste a single second, his voice dripping with venom as he warns her that he is done playing around with simple, single-shot rifles. He reveals his new, devastating toy, a high-capacity machine gun capable of spitting out 10 rounds every single second, a weapon designed to shred any amateur to pieces. With a maniacal laugh, he pulls the trigger and unleashes a literal wall of lead, the air filling with the deafening roar of gunfire as he screams for her to eat it. The bullets streak toward her like a swarm of angry hornets, but the heavenly demon Chan doesn't even flinch, her small frame standing defiant against the incoming storm of metal. She raises her hands, her purple aura erupting into a blinding, protective barrier that shatters the bullets upon impact, proving once again that modern steel is no match for her ancient mastery. The heavenly demon Chan stands amidst the digital chaos, her purple aura crackling as she effortlessly catches the lead projectiles midair. She moves with such blinding, supernatural speed that the bullets are rendered completely harmless, falling to the ground like discarded trash. The gunslinger is sent reeling, his body forced backward by the sheer, overwhelming pressure of her internal energy. He collapses in a heap of digital debris, his virtual form trembling as he struggles to comprehend the total failure of his high-capacity weaponry. The assassination squad watches in stunned silence, their leader's face hardening into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury at the sight of their comrade's defeat. The system officially declares the heavenly demon the victor, her calm, composed stance contrasting sharply with the absolute devastation she has just unleashed. The defeated gunslinger scrambles to his feet, his voice cracking as he desperately tries to explain his failure to his enraged, looming boss. The squad leader rages against the perceived injustice, convinced that the girl must be cheating because her mastery defies every known law of their modern, digital reality. The tension reaches a breaking point as the next challenger, the aggressive public bathhouse shoe rack destroyer, steps forward with a vow to crush her arrogance. He locks and loads his heavy assault rifle, screaming for the heavenly demon to prepare herself for a barrage that no human could possibly hope to survive. The defeated challenger's face contorts in a mask of pure, unadulterated agony as the reality of his crushing loss sets in. While a new, eager combatant named Elevator Stealth Silent Fart bursts onto the scene, brandishing a rifle and arrogantly claiming he will succeed where his predecessors failed. The screen captures the sheer, pathetic desperation of the previous loser, his features blurred by the intensity of his frustration and disbelief. As the assassination squad watches the feed in a state of mounting panic, their own members clamoring for a chance to restore their tarnished honor. Kai Yureng basks in the glory of her performance, her smug, satisfied expression radiating the confidence of a true master who knows she is currently the talk of the entire platform. The chat goes into a frenzy of worship, declaring the heavenly demon the undisputed idol of all martial artists while mocking the remnants of the assassination squad. Back in the squad's headquarters, the tension hits a boiling point as the leader shuts down a subordinate's desperate plea for a rematch. His face hardened by cold, calculated resolve, the leader declares that the squad's reputation has suffered enough and demands a definitive end to this humiliation. Peng Diokjo, the fierce vice boss of the Hebei Peng clan, steps into the light to take matters into his own hands, his aura heavy with the weight of his clan's pride. He adjusts his gear with a grim, focused intensity, acknowledging that the girl they are hunting is far more dangerous than any ordinary child. Kai Yureng analyzes the strange, digital nature of her opponents, wondering if their unnatural speed is the result of hidden artifacts, advanced cyberware, or some form of unknown magic. She points a finger at her interface, her mind racing as she prepares to dissect the mechanics of her next high-stakes encounter. Meanwhile, a desperate challenger dons his virtual reality headset, his face set in a grim mask of determination as he realizes that anything less than his absolute best will result in total defeat. The system interface flares with a brilliant light, formally announcing that the heavenly demon has achieved a promotion from iron to the bronze tier. She stands in the center of the arena with her arms outstretched, basking in the adoration of her chat as she celebrates her flawless 9-win record. The stream reaches a fever pitch as massive donations pour in from her loyal supporters, prompting the heavenly demon to break into a playful, feline-inspired dance of gratitude. A new, daunting notification flashes on her screen, revealing a challenge from a gold-tier opponent that leaves her questioning the true power scaling of this digital world. She learns that gold-tier fighters are capable of reinforcing their bodies with mana, a revelation that makes her pause and consider the gravity of the upcoming duel. She crosses her arms in a display of supreme confidence, listening to the warnings about the massive tier gap while secretly plotting how to dismantle a gold-ranked warrior. She taps the accept button with a smirk, fully aware that her ability to catch bullets makes her a terrifying anomaly that no ranking system can truly contain. The digital arena shudders as a new challenger logs in, his heavy boots slamming onto the virtual floor with a demand for the heavenly demon to finally face him. Peng Deokjo, the fierce vice-captain of the assassination squad, steps into the spotlight, his eyes burning with a cold, lethal intent that signals he is not here to play games. Kai Yureng tilts her head with a flicker of genuine surprise, her brow furrowing as she recognizes the name of the legendary Hebei Peng clan. The vice-captain sneers at her recognition, his posture rigid as he confirms the clan's fearsome reputation as the Tigers of Hebei. He presses her on her past, demanding to know exactly which member of his prestigious family she has encountered during her long, mysterious exile. Kai Yureng drops the name Hoyon with a casual, airy indifference, completely unaware of the explosive emotional weight that name carries for the man standing before her. The vice-captain freezes, his expression twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage as he struggles to process her flippant mention of his late, honored clan head. Kai Yureng remains blissfully oblivious to the tension, her face lighting up with a faint, nostalgic smile as she recalls the cheerful nature of the man she once knew. Peng Deokjo's hand clenches into a white-knuckled fist, his veins bulging as he recounts the tragic, heroic sacrifice of his leader who died protecting his kin from demonic beasts. The vice-captain finally snaps, his voice erupting in a thunderous roar as he commands the heavenly demon to silence her disrespectful tongue before he tears it from her throat. Peng Deokjo's face contorts into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage as he snaps at the girl for her relentless, mocking repetition of the late clan head's name. He bellows that the Peng clan's spirit remains unbroken despite the destruction of their manor and the scattering of their kin, his eyes burning with a fanatical, dangerous intensity. Kai Yureng scratches her head with a look of utter, dismissive boredom, wondering aloud why he is throwing such a pathetic fit over a name that hasn't even been insulted. The vice-captain's aura flares with a dark, suffocating pressure, as he warns her that he is known as Trash Peng Deokjo for his ruthless, depraved history of slaughtering the vulnerable. She stares at him with a mix of confusion and disdain, questioning if he is actually bragging about his own lack of honor while the chat scrambles to identify this infamous menace. The stream's interface confirms the grim reality, revealing that he is a survivor of the wiped-out Peng clan who now wields a tyrannical, first-rate saber technique. The chat recoils in horror as his past atrocities are laid bare, highlighting his disgusting reputation for targeting the weak while he prepares to strike with his blade. He screams a final, arrogant challenge, promising to make the heavenly demon pay for her insolence as he prepares to unleash the full weight of the assassination squad's fury. She closes her eyes for a brief, chilling moment, calmly reciting the ancient Jianghu proverb that warns travelers to always fear the elderly, women, and children. She opens her eyes with a wicked, predatory smirk, her purple aura erupting as she reminds him that she perfectly embodies all three of those deadly categories. Peng Deokjo plants his feet with arrogant finality, his blade drawn and his spirit primed to end this entire farce with one singular, devastating strike. The ground beneath him shatters instantly as he unleashes a shockwave of raw, unbridled power that tears through the digital floor. He lunges forward with the Mountain King's reigning step, his movements blurring as he closes the distance to crush the heavenly demon Chan. The clash is instantaneous and violent, a high-speed collision that sends sparks flying as their energies collide in the center of the arena. He leaps high into the air, his blade glowing with a lethal predatory light as he prepares to execute the White Tiger's soul-severing. Kai Yureng doesn't retreat, instead meeting his descent with a surge of dark, crackling energy that defies the very laws of the digital realm. The vice-captain's eyes widen in absolute, paralyzing shock as he realizes his overwhelming assault has been met with an impossible, superior force. He is left reeling by the sound of steel clashing against her bare palms, his mind struggling to comprehend how a child could parry his blade with such ease. The realization hits him like a physical blow as he recognizes the forbidden, crackling aura of the primordial lightning palm tearing through his defenses. He coughs up blood, his composure shattered as he stares at the heavenly demon in terror, demanding to know how she possesses his own clan's most sacred secret technique. Kai Yureng stands with her back to the fallen warrior, her aura still pulsing with lethal intent as she coldly critiques the hesitation that cost him the match. She looms over his broken form, declaring that the very act of wavering proves he is still clinging to life, while the defeated man can only sputter in absolute, bewildered rage. The fallen vice-captain stares up in shock, his mind reeling as the heavenly demon Chan calmly insists that the tragic death of his clan head is not his burden to carry. She channels the spectral presence of the late Peng Hoyon, her voice echoing with a haunting authority as she claims to speak the words he would have offered to his kin. The defeated man's face twitches with a violent, internal tremor, his composure completely unraveling as he struggles to reconcile her words with the cold, hard reality of his failure. His teeth grit together in a desperate, agonizing display of denial, his spirit fracturing under the weight of her psychological assault as he begs her to stop the mockery. She gazes down at him with a look of detached, icy pity, acknowledging the pathetic state of a Peng clan descendant who has lost his way in the digital void. She reaches out to claim her prize, her hand glowing with a vibrant, digital light as the system officially signals the end of the match and her total dominance. The arena erupts in a chaotic frenzy of notifications, the system confirming her victory while the chat goes absolutely feral, celebrating the total humiliation of the assassination squad. She stands amidst a shower of digital donations, her rank soaring to silver as she absorbs the adoration of her fans, completely unfazed by the massive mounting hype. Kai Yureng revels in the shower of digital cookies raining down upon her stream, her feline persona fully engaged as she celebrates the lucrative nature of her latest victory. She flashes a confident peace sign, already calculating how many thousands of cookies she needs to secure her next feast of premium Dompo pork in the near future. The mood shifts instantly as a system notification blares across her screen, announcing a new challenger who has arrived to test her mettle in the virtual arena. She stares at the prompt with genuine confusion, her eyes widening as she reads the name of the user requesting a duel and wonders what kind of person would choose such a title. She leans in closer to the interface, her brow furrowed in deep contemplation as she tries to place the name of the mysterious Grand Master who just challenged her. She turns to her chat, her expression turning serious as she points out the suspicious username that she feels she has encountered somewhere in her past. The chat erupts with the revelation that this Grand Master is the very same troll who previously spammed her with demands to change her name. She shudders at the realization that a high-ranking player would waste their time on such petty, obsessive trolling, questioning the true nature of the Grand Master tier. The chat attempts to explain the hierarchy of the platform, comparing the diamond rank to a sword master and struggling to find a martial arts equivalent for the Grand Master. She gazes at a collection of old, malicious forum posts that once flooded the boards, recognizing the obsessive, repetitive propaganda that defined the troll's dark history. The masked troll continues his digital assault, sneering at the thought of anyone dragging the sacred reputation of the heavenly demon cult through the mud. Kai Yureng pauses to reflect on the situation, her initial dismissal fading as she realizes the sheer skill level of her opponent defies all logic. She wonders if this mysterious challenger could be a remnant of her own sect, perhaps a high-ranking envoy or one of the legendary four heavenly kings. She decides that the only way to uncover the truth is to face him head-on, firmly clicking the accept button to initiate the high-stakes duel. The system confirms the match as the virtual arena shifts, leaving the audience in a state of shock that she would dare to accept such a dangerous challenge. A massive, ornate gate looms in the distance, its imposing presence and eerie atmosphere signaling that a true Grand Master has finally arrived on the scene. A single booted foot steps onto the arena floor, the air shimmering with a cold, unnatural energy that instantly commands the attention of every viewer. Kai Yureng stands tall as the figure emerges, her eyes narrowing as she demands to know if he truly recognizes her as the one and only heavenly demon. The masked Grand Master steps into the light, his glowing eyes fixed on her as he offers a chilling, synthesized greeting that confirms their long-awaited confrontation. She studies his movements with a sharp, analytical gaze, noting that while his voice is clearly altered by an artifact, his underlying habits and mannerisms remain impossible to hide. Kai Yureng stands locked in a tense, silent standoff with the masked Grand Master, her mind racing as she prepares to uncover the true identity behind his digital facade. The masked challenger looms with an air of arrogant superiority, reminding her of their high-stakes wager and the requirement for her to surrender her title should she fall. She brushes off his intimidation with a calm, dismissive gesture, reminding him that she has absolutely no intention of losing their duel or her hard-earned reputation. The Grand Master mocks her lack of visible weaponry, his hands crackling with a lethal, glowing energy as he condescendingly claims that bare hands are more than enough to crush her. The system countdown hits 0 and the fight erupts, but as the dust settles, Kai Yureng finds herself momentarily confused by the sudden, vanishing act of her opponent. She remains hyperalert, her senses scanning the arena until she catches a glimpse of the Grand Master moving with a speed that defies the limitations of the digital realm. Her eyes widen in sudden, sharp recognition as she observes his intricate, flowing movements, realizing that his footwork is a technique she has seen in her own past. She is struck by a wave of disbelief as she identifies the legendary Seven Blessings, a rare and devastating sound-based martial art that should be impossible for him to wield. The Grand Master is sent sprawling across the arena floor by an unseen force, his composure shattered as the chat erupts in shock at seeing their idol finally humbled. She approaches the fallen, trembling figure with a cold, commanding presence, forcing him to confront the reality that he is facing the one and only heavenly demon Chan. The masked challenger denies his identity with a sharp, defensive edge, his voice echoing with the weight of a past he desperately tries to keep buried. Kai Yureng stares him down, her purple eyes narrowing as she questions why he is so visibly shaken by the mention of his former title. She presses her advantage, declaring with absolute certainty that she could never forget the distinct, icy grace of his signature footwork. She recalls the frail boy she once mentored, a youth plagued by cold yin energy who defied his own tragic fate to become her most trusted confidant. She remembers the loyalty of her younger brother, the one who followed her every command without hesitation, forever bound to her side. The heavenly demon Chan calls him out directly, finally pinning the identity of Seven Blessings onto the masked figure who stands trembling before her. The challenger struggles to maintain his composure, his breath hitching as he wonders aloud why she is so obsessed with forcing him to admit the truth. He clutches his chest in a moment of intense, physical agony, his spirit buckling as he prepares to reveal the dark reason he abandoned his name. The scene flashes back to a chaotic, burning battlefield where desperate warriors scream for their formations to hold against an overwhelming, unseen threat. The sky itself tears open in a catastrophic display of power, a recurring nightmare that haunts his every waking moment and explains his deep, lingering trauma. The sun and moon divine cult burns as monstrous entities tear through the ranks, devouring the terrified disciples in a scene of absolute, unadulterated carnage. A desperate survivor cries out into the smoke and ruin, his voice cracking as he frantically searches for the leader who seems to have vanished into the chaos. The survivor stares at the towering, demonic shadows looming over the burning temple, his faith wavering as he refuses to believe his master would ever abandon them. He stumbles through the wreckage, his mind fracturing as he questions if the leader has truly fallen in the heat of the slaughter. He is confronted by the commander Myeonchan, who desperately orders the heavenly strategist to flee the massacre and preserve the future of their dying sect. The survivor screams in denial, his voice lost in the roar of the flames as he insists that the cult leader would never leave them to die. The commander snaps back with brutal, cold clarity, shouting that the leader has indeed abandoned them to the monsters. The survivor collapses, his spirit broken as he is struck by the visceral, bloody reality of the catastrophe unfolding before his eyes. He recalls the day the heavens tore open and the world flooded with monsters, a trauma that has festered in his mind for over a decade. A malevolent, whispering heart demon latches onto his psyche, chanting the lie of abandonment until he loses his grip on sanity and screams into the void. The broken man curls into a fetal position, his mind fracturing under the weight of a decade-long psychological war against the phantom of his own cult leader. Kai Yureng watches him with a piercing, analytical gaze, her voice cutting through the tension as she questions the source of his sudden, erratic behavior. He lashes out with a desperate, frantic strike, his movements fueled by the sheer terror of having his deepest, darkest secrets dragged into the light. He gasps for air, his mask barely concealing the raw, unadulterated agony of a man whose heart demon has been empowered by her relentless, probing questions. He struggles to regain his footing, his body swaying as he finally confesses to his past life as the heavenly strategist of the long-lost sun and moon divine cult. He reveals his true identity as Dam Wolin, the legendary heavenly smoke black feather, his voice trembling with the weight of his hidden, tragic history. The digital arena erupts in absolute chaos as the chat realizes they are witnessing the return of a ghost from the era of the Great Cataclysm. Kai Yureng remains coolly detached, mocking the overreaction of the martial artists while she prepares to dissect the implications of this monumental, world-shaking revelation. She muses on the impossibility of the situation, noting that the survival of such a high-ranking cult member is an anomaly that defies all historical records. Dam Wolin reaches out with a shaky hand, his arrogance momentarily replaced by a strange, hollow mercy as he stares down the girl who has dismantled his entire world. The masked challenger looms over the stream interface, his digital presence radiating a cold, suffocating authority as he demands the girl surrender her stolen title. Kai Yureng meets his gaze with a calm, piercing intensity, her purple eyes betraying no fear as she flatly rejects his ultimatum with a chilling, dismissive indifference. The air around the masked man begins to warp as his internal turmoil manifests, his hands trembling as he struggles to suppress the rising tide of his own volatile rage. A phantom of his own fractured psyche claws at his mind, a dark, grinning manifestation of his heart demon that threatens to drag him into a total, irreversible chi deviation. He unleashes a surge of icy, distorted energy that sweeps across the arena, his form wreathed in a swirling vortex of blue, spectral power that defies the laws of the game. The two combatants launch themselves into the air, their movements blurring into a high-speed dance of destruction as they trade blows amidst the crackling, ethereal storm. They collide in a spectacular display of martial prowess, their energies clashing with such force that the very fabric of the virtual environment begins to flicker and groan. Kai Yureng moves with the grace of a predator, her eyes locked onto the masked man as she forces him to confront the crushing reality of his own hesitation. The masked man freezes mid-strike, his hand caught in a delicate, precise gesture as he stares into the void, his composure finally shattering under the weight of her presence. The scene shifts to a quiet, starlit pavilion where the two figures stand amidst the ruins of their confrontation, the silence heavy with the ghosts of a long-lost, tragic past. Dam Wolin looms over the seated girl, his voice cold as he suggests that mixing the potent liquor with the essence of moonlight creates a truly transcendent flavor. He scolds her with a sharp, cynical edge, insisting that even the finest spirits in the world must be consumed with restraint and discipline. The girl looks up at him with a weary, hollow expression, questioning why a man who has already accepted his own impending death should bother with such trivial rules. She stares into the distance, her voice barely a whisper as she firmly rejects his grim outlook and insists that he is nowhere near the end of his journey. She offers a faint, bittersweet smile while clutching her cup, confessing that she feels completely beyond any hope of salvation or redemption. She turns her back to him, lamenting her lowly origins and the cursed, fragile body that lacks the natural talent required to master the path of martial arts. She urges him to abandon her to her fate, convinced that she is destined to do nothing but waste away her remaining days in a drunken stupor. A tear streaks down her face as she watches him walk away, her internal monologue spiraling into a desperate, pathetic plea for him to turn back and stop her. She gazes into the swirling, ethereal liquid in her cup, lamenting that he has chosen to depart without leaving behind even a single shred of hope. The atmosphere shifts as he suddenly stops, his eyes locking onto hers as he prepares to bestow the 7 blessings upon her as a final, elegant parting gift. Tears stream down her face as she reflects on the cruel irony of a technique seemingly crafted for someone as talentless and physically frail as herself. She channels the 12 forms of the gentle sword, her aura surging with the ethereal, haunting power of the 7 blessings. She stands in a dual stance, her resolve hardening as she embraces the mantle of the cult leader to guide her lost brother. She commands him to follow her path without a single word of objection, though she tearfully admits that her only true strength lies in her cunning and schemes. He scoffs at her hesitation, dismissing her insecurities with a sharp, arrogant grin that cuts through the heavy, moonlit atmosphere. She stands tall in the pavilion, her presence radiating a newfound, terrifying authority as she declares her genuine affinity for his broken spirit. He laughs with a wild, unhinged joy, finally finding the closure he has desperately sought as the heavenly strategist of the sun and moon divine cult. She reaches out into the void, her hand glowing with the power of the heavens as she recalls the legendary thunderous return of their fallen leader. The clouds part to reveal the moon, and as the darkness retreats, the world bears witness to the miraculous, spiritual resurrection of the cult's true master. He collapses in a state of pure, overwhelming shock, his heart finally shattering the illusion as he cries out in disbelief, questioning if his brother has truly returned to him. The heavenly demon Chan stands tall as a spectral, towering projection of her former self looms behind her, confirming the identity of the one who has finally returned to claim the throne. She gazes down at the broken, kneeling form of her former subordinate, greeting him with a chilling familiarity that cuts through the silence of the moonlit arena. The two figures stand amidst the ethereal glow, the weight of their shared history hanging heavy in the air as they look up toward the silent, watching moon. She observes the passage of time etched onto his face, noting the toll that decades of trauma and survival have taken on the man once known as her strategist. She dismisses his confusion with a casual, almost flippant remark, brushing off the miraculous nature of her current, youthful state as if it were a mere triviality. She stares into his eyes with a sharp, piercing intensity, catching the subtle flicker of recognition as he realizes that her core essence remains entirely unchanged. She watches him with a smug, knowing smirk, clearly amused by the way he struggles to reconcile her current, diminutive form with the terrifying power she wields. She begins to recount the rise of the third young master, a man who clawed his way up from the bottom without the crutch of a powerful family. She details his meteoric ascent to the position of cult leader by 20, and his historic achievement of the Heavenly Demon title by the age of 30. She stands as the absolute pinnacle of martial arts, the legendary Heavenly Demon Kai Yuring, whose name once brought the entire world to its knees in total, absolute submission. Kai Yuring beams with a playful, feline energy, poking fun at the decade-long gap since the cataclysm and the sheer absurdity of her current, youthful appearance. Dam Wolin listens with a heavy heart, his brow furrowed as he leans in to finally demand the truth about the harrowing events that transpired after the world fell. She admits with a casual shrug that transforming into this tiny, pretty girl was the only viable path to finding him again in this strange, new digital landscape. The revelation hits Dam Wolin like a physical blow, his eyes widening in horror as he realizes his sworn sibling has been trapped in the hellish demonic realm for 10 long years. He stares at her in disbelief, struggling to process the fact that she survived such a nightmare and somehow managed to scavenge broadcasting gear to start her stream. Kai Yureng laughs off the grim details, confirming that while she isn't entirely certain if her home is the true demonic realm, the struggle was every bit as brutal as he fears. Dam Wolin is visibly shaken, his spirit reeling as he realizes he was lost in his own heart demon while she was fighting a lonely, desperate battle for survival. She acknowledges the crushing weight of those years, admitting that the isolation, the boredom, and the tasteless food made her existence in that void the absolute worst. She explains her history of being raised as a man due to an excess of yin energy, a bizarre upbringing that defined her early life before she ever took the oath of brotherhood. She dismisses the importance of titles with a smirk, while Dam Wolin bows with absolute, unwavering loyalty, pledging to serve her as his brother regardless of the changes time has wrought. Kai Yureng explains that she cut the broadcast the moment she sensed Dam Wolin spiraling into a dangerous state of chi deviation. The strategist looks on in confusion, struggling to grasp the concept of her Dompo pork squad while questioning the wisdom of her sudden, impulsive decision. She brushes off his concern with a smug confidence, insisting that her fans are easily managed with a bit of cuteness and a convenient excuse. She pivots the conversation to the grim history of the Great Cataclysm, demanding to know the truth about the location where the cult was decimated. Dam Wolin describes the horror of their arrival, revealing that they had inadvertently fallen directly into the heart of a nest teeming with demonic beasts. He recounts the nightmare of the manor being trampled and his kin being devoured, leaving the once mighty cult to vanish without a single trace. Kai Yureng expresses her relief at his survival, but presses him on the fate of the other high-ranking members who once stood by their side. He confirms with a heavy, broken heart that he is likely the sole survivor of that hellscape, having seen no others escape the slaughter. She reflects on his years of obsessive forum posting, realizing that his erratic behavior was a desperate, failed attempt to find any remaining brothers in arms. She concludes that if the world hadn't been so blinded by embarrassment at his posts, they might have actually uncovered the truth that other survivors could still be out there. The air between them crackles with the weight of the past as the 7 blessings are named, confirming the deep, unbreakable bond between the two survivors. Dam Wolin acknowledges his leader with a solemn nod, his voice heavy with the realization that the Sun and Moon divine cult has truly been reduced to ash. Kai Yureng watches him with a knowing, gentle expression, accepting the harsh reality of their loss while already looking toward the horizon of their future. She rises with a surge of renewed purpose, declaring that they will rise from these ruins under a new, glorious banner that will shake the very foundations of this world. She leaps onto the rooftop, her silhouette framed against the massive, glowing moon as she prepares to cast away the old name and embrace a new destiny. She announces the birth of the Moonlight Divine Cult, her voice ringing out with such confidence that it feels like a promise to the entire digital realm. She turns back to her brother with a wicked, triumphant smirk, daring him to challenge the brilliance of her vision for their grand, inevitable rebirth. Dam Wolin is overcome with raw, unfiltered emotion, his eyes welling with tears as he looks upon his leader and finds the salvation he never thought possible. The scene shifts to the dark, silent forest where the moonlight pierces the canopy, casting long, eerie shadows over the path ahead. Nam Dusik stalks through the gloom with his blade drawn, his red eyes burning with a murderous intent that signals the coming storm for our heroes. The digital arena erupts in a blinding flash of light as the heavenly demon Chan delivers a strike so precise and devastating that it cleaves through the very air. The impact sends a shockwave of agony through the challenger, his virtual form flickering as he coughs up blood, his pride shattered by the overwhelming force of her technique. She looms over him with a cold, predatory gaze, her voice dripping with disdain as she labels him a disgrace to his family and demands he vanish from her sight. The defeated warrior collapses, his spirit buckling under the weight of his failure as he struggles to comprehend how he was so thoroughly dismantled. He curls into himself, the dark, swirling energy of his own frustration manifesting as a suffocating shroud that clings to his broken, trembling body. He gasps for air, his mind spiraling as he laments his inability to surpass the insurmountable wall that his own brother represents in his quest for power. He lies in the dirt, his body racked with tremors as he calls out in a pathetic, desperate plea for his brother Nam-dusik to witness his humiliation. A subordinate rushes to his side, frantic and confused, demanding to know if a rival syndicate has launched a surprise attack on their position. The broken warrior looks up, his eyes hollow as he delivers the crushing news that they have been defeated by the very brat who caught bullets with her bare hands. Nam-dusik's eyes widen in a flash of pure, unadulterated shock as he realizes that even the formidable Peng Diokjo has been utterly crushed by the heavenly demon. The assassination squad member recoils in utter disbelief, his mind struggling to process how a mere brat could dismantle a powerhouse like Diokjo without leaving a single trace. Nam-dusik stands in the shadows, his expression shifting from cold authority to a dark, simmering realization as he finally grasps the true weight of the heavenly demon's name. He steps forward with a lethal grace, his blade drawn and his voice cutting through the tension as he commands his subordinate to stand down. He stares into the darkness with a predatory focus, his mind already calculating the path to victory against an opponent who has humiliated his entire organization. The blood flower sword looms large, his aura radiating a suffocating, murderous intent as he prepares to personally erase the stain on his squad's reputation. Back at her desk, Kai Yureng maintains her haughty composure, officially appointing her new manager while threatening the chat with a digital blade if they dare to step out of line. She leans back in her chair with a smug, knowing smirk, fully aware that her old acquaintance is now bound to her service in this bizarre, digital afterlife. The chat descends into absolute, chaotic madness as they witness the interaction, their confusion peaking when the legendary strategist addresses her with such terrifying, cult-like devotion. She shuts down the mounting hysteria with a sharp, commanding wave of her hand, forcing the digital mob to fall into a tense, uneasy silence. The viewer count climbs steadily as the internet begins to speculate on her true origins, unaware that they are watching the beginning of a world-shaking, divine conquest. Kai Yureng notes how the viral clips of her recent duel have flooded the digital space, drawing massive attention to her channel. She realizes the sudden influx of viewers is largely due to the legendary appearance of the heavenly smoke black feather. She decides that the iron is hot, and the time is perfect to unveil her grand, long-term roadmap to her growing audience. She leans into her microphone with a sharp, focused intensity, commanding her chat to listen closely as she prepares to drop her major agenda. She gestures with a confident, sweeping motion, outlining her 3 grand objectives while the chat buzzes with anticipation and heart-pounding excitement. She declares her first goal is to become the undisputed #1 streamer on Seawitch, a claim that leaves the chat reeling at the sheer audacity of the task. She moves to her second objective, aiming to reach the legendary realm beyond realms in Real Fight 99, a feat that would cement her status as a true titan. She reflects on the skepticism of the masses, noting how they dismiss her ambition as the naive posturing of a child, much like they once mocked her brother. She recalls the history of her brother's rise to the cult leader's throne, remembering how the laughter of his enemies turned to dead silence once he claimed his power. She stares into the camera with a predatory smirk, promising that she does not make empty threats and that her actions will soon prove her absolute resolve. Kai Yureng leans into the camera with a menacing, authoritative glare, declaring her absolute intent to restore the glory of the divine cult to its former heights. The chat is sent into a tailspin of confusion, with viewers spamming questions about what exactly she plans to rebuild and how she intends to pull it off. She clarifies that while the foundation was once the Sun and Moon Divine Cult, she has officially rebranded and resurrected it as the Moonlight Divine Cult. She reassures her audience that despite the name change, the core of the organization remains under her direct, iron-fisted leadership. She adds a final, crucial objective to her roadmap, announcing her intention to systematically investigate and find a way to escape her isolated, cursed island. The chat acknowledges her 4-point plan with a mix of awe and bewilderment, finally realizing they are witnessing a genuine, high-stakes communication stream. She calls out to her newly appointed manager, 7 Blessings, confirming that he is ready to dive into the research required to hit their ambitious targets. The strategist bows his head in total, silent commitment, already preparing to craft a killer presentation that will solidify their path forward. She pivots to address the Dompo Pork Squad, shutting down their chaotic suggestions for horror games and mukbangs by directing them to the official fan cafe. The scene shifts to the real world where Nam-dusik looms over his broken subordinate, his red eyes burning as he demands confirmation of the humiliating defeat. The subordinate confirms his role in the humiliating defeat, drawing the immediate, volcanic ire of his superior who refuses to accept such a pathetic outcome. The leader of the squad steps into the fray, his red eyes burning with a cold, calculating intensity as he demands the truth from his men. The subordinate admits the grim reality of their failure, leaving the leader to contemplate the next move in this escalating, high-stakes game of pride and power. The leader prepares to take matters into his own hands, his focus shifting entirely toward the heavenly demon who has become a thorn in his side. The squad members exchange uneasy glances, their confidence wavering as they realize the true, terrifying potential of the opponent they have been hunting. The leader reflects on the crushing weight of their reputation, haunted by the specter of the heavenly demon Chan and the potential for a total, catastrophic collapse. He envisions the nightmare scenario where his own rank and status are dismantled by the very child he once dismissed as a mere, insignificant nuisance. The tension in the room thickens as he weighs the risks of a direct confrontation, knowing that a loss here would mean the end of his squad's legacy. He steels his resolve, dismissing the concerns of his subordinates with a sharp, authoritative command that leaves no room for further doubt or hesitation. The youngest member attempts to interject with a final, desperate warning about the vast gap in their ranks, only to be silenced by the leader's cold, absolute fury. Nam Dusik and his squad huddle in the shadows, their voices low as they plot a deceptive scheme to lure the heavenly demon into a trap. The youngest member of the squad nervously outlines the plan, terrified that the target will simply refuse any direct challenge they throw her way. Peng Deokjo grins with a twisted, malicious satisfaction, confident that even a seasoned player would fall for such a classic, underhanded bait-and switch tactic. Nam Dusik dismisses the hesitation of his men with a cold, sharp command, ordering them to set the stage for their final, desperate gamble. The squad leader snaps at his youngest recruit to stop whining and focus on the mission, demanding that the trap be set with absolute lethal efficiency. Frustrated by the incompetence surrounding him, Nam Dusik turns his back on the group to find some air, leaving his subordinates to finalize the dirty work. Kai Yurang sits in her gaming chair, the system notification pinging in her ears as she realizes the massive point calculation for her previous match has finally concluded. She stands amidst the digital grid, her expression one of calm anticipation as she notes the system is finally processing the rewards from her clash with 7 blessings. The interface flickers with intense, neon light as the system confirms her match details and prepares to settle the massive point influx based on the tier difference. A surge of raw, digital energy erupts around her as the system officially announces her promotion, showering her in the hard-earned points of a true champion. The system notification blares across the screen, confirming the impossible promotion from silver to gold in a single match, leaving the chat in a state of absolute, unadulterated shock. Kai Yurang taps her chin with a playful, feline smirk, listening as the viewers speculate wildly about whether she rigged the match or simply crushed her opponent into oblivion. Hako Seeker 13 steps in to shut down the conspiracy theories, pointing out that the system logs are clean and that Sea-Witch's anti-cheat protocols are far too strict for any funny business. The chat continues to reel from the revelation of her flawless 11-win streak, struggling to reconcile her rapid ascent with the legendary status of her defeated rival. Kai Yurang turns her attention to her manager, Dam Wolin, who looks utterly dejected after his own unfortunate demotion to the diamond tier. She offers a sympathetic, albeit slightly mocking, word of comfort, assuring him that a man of his caliber will surely climb back to the top in no time. A sudden, intrusive invitation pops up on her interface, interrupting her stream with a challenge from the notorious silver-rank troll, Chewed Gum Destroyer. She scoffs at the audacity of the interruption, her eyes narrowing as she recognizes the pathetic attempt by Peng Deokjo to bait her into a custom room. With a cold, dismissive flick of her finger, she rejects the invitation, leaving the assassination squad members to stew in their own mounting, volcanic rage. Peng Deokjo loses his mind at the public humiliation, screaming in denial as he refuses to accept that a mere rookie has completely outclassed his entire squad. The assassination squad members are losing their minds, absolutely baffled by the fact that this brat has somehow managed to secure a gold rank. Jegal Samdal chimes in with the latest intel, confirming that she didn't just climb the ladder, she actually took down a Grand Master to get there. The squad leader is left stuttering in disbelief, struggling to wrap his head around the sheer absurdity of a rookie pulling off such a legendary feat. He curses the situation, realizing that their carefully laid plans are already falling apart because she is far more dangerous than they ever anticipated. A subordinate suggests they just stop playing games and throw their actual boss at her, but the leader remains skeptical about the logic of that move. Jegal Samdal argues that since she is obsessed with reaching the realm beyond realms, she will never settle for fighting anyone beneath her current skill level. He emphasizes that she is strictly hunting for high-tier points, meaning they have to bait her with the promise of a platinum-ranked opponent to get her to show up. Peng Deokjo finally sees the light, realizing that if they dangle a juicy platinum target in front of her, she will walk right into their trap. Kai Yureng receives the bait, her eyes lighting up with predatory interest as she accepts the invitation, fully expecting to feast on the points of a platinum player. She arrives at the arena and immediately starts roasting the low-ranked mongrels waiting for her, while the squad hides their grins, knowing they have her exactly where they want her. The assassination squad members scramble through the digital landscape, their movements frantic as they reflect on the crushing defeat that left their pride in tatters. Peng Deokjo stands amidst the ruins of his reputation, his voice heavy with the bitter realization that his previous arrogance has led him to this humiliating impasse. He turns his gaze toward the heavenly demon Chan, his expression desperate as he pleads for a rematch to salvage the tattered remains of his standing within the squad. He bellows with a fiery, unhinged intensity, swearing that even if he falls again, he will prove that his spirit remains unbroken by her overwhelming power. Kai Yureng watches him with a sharp, mocking smirk, her internal monologue cutting through his theatrics as she calls out the pathetic nature of his surrounding tactics. The masked challenger doubles down on his lack of honor, admitting that he knows her skills all too well and has no intention of fighting her fairly. He reveals his cowardly, calculated plan to beg for a win in private, intending to strike the moment she drops her guard to finally secure a victory. Kai Yureng receives the incoming whisper on her interface, her eyes narrowing as she instantly recognizes the desperate, underhanded nature of the request. She muses on the sheer audacity of the vice boss, noting that while she understands his plight as a leader, his methods are a total disgrace to the martial path. She confirms her agreement to the match with a sly, knowing glint in her eye, secretly planning to toy with him rather than grant him the victory he craves. Kai Yureng stands amidst the assassination squad, her calm demeanor masking a lethal intent as she prepares to dismantle their pathetic, coordinated ambush. The squad members scramble into formation, their faces twisted with desperation as they count down the seconds to their final, doomed offensive. The air crackles with the sound of modern weaponry being readied, the squad members ignoring all martial honor to unleash a hail of bullets upon their target. Kai Yureng remains perfectly poised, her silhouette cutting through the chaos as she effortlessly weaves between the incoming projectiles with supernatural grace. Peng Deokjo watches in sheer, unadulterated horror as his entire plan begins to crumble, his eyes widening at the sight of his squad being decimated in seconds. The battlefield becomes a blur of motion as Kai Yureng strikes with blinding speed, sending her attackers flying through the air like discarded trash. She stands over the wreckage of her enemies, her voice ringing out with a cold, mocking authority as she demands a drink to celebrate her effortless victory. The chat explodes in a frenzy of adoration, hailing the heavenly demon Chan as a supreme force of nature, while Peng Deokjo trembles in the dirt. She turns her piercing, purple gaze toward the last remaining member of the squad, dismissing him as a worthless scrub while demanding the location of his leader. Peng Deokjo stares back at her with a mix of terror and begrudging respect, finally accepting his role as the bait to lure his master into her trap. Kai Yureng stands unfazed as her opponent, recognizing the sheer, overwhelming skill gap, prepares for a desperate final gamble. The challenger launches himself into the air with a lethal strike, his mind consumed by the singular, violent goal of severing her arm. But the heavenly demon Chan is far too quick, meeting his aggression with a crushing counter that slams him into the ground and ends the match instantly. She stands over the defeated man, her hand raised in a gesture of cold, absolute authority as she demands the location of his leader. The broken subordinate, pinned and humiliated, points a trembling finger toward the gates, desperate to appease the monster who just dismantled him. She moves forward with a calm, predatory grace, knowing that the path ahead was always inevitable and that the final confrontation is finally at hand. She steps into the inner sanctum, her back turned to the world as she prepares to face the leader of the assassination squad. Suddenly, Nam Dusik descends from above, his blade gleaming with murderous intent as he attempts to catch the heavenly demon off guard. Kai Yureng barely glances up, her purple eyes narrowing as she recognizes the distinct, familiar aura of the weapon he wields. She identifies the unhindered Azure Sword, a legendary technique that promises no obstacles under the blue sky as the true test of her power begins. The unhindered Azure Sword technique manifests as a soaring eagle, a masterclass in fluid motion that threatens to dismantle any defense with the grace of a shifting autumn wind. Kai Yureng observes the display with a cold, analytical detachment, her sharp eyes dissecting the flaw in his bravado as she prepares to dismantle his entire worldview. Nam Dusik stands before her, radiating a false sense of authority while he remains completely oblivious to the fact that his entire squad has already been wiped off the map. The heavenly demon-chan confirms her identity with a casual, biting wit, her youthful appearance serving as the perfect trap to lull the arrogant leader into a false sense of security. Nam Dusik introduces himself with the pompous flair of a man who still believes he holds the cards, unaware that his opponent has already turned his subordinates into a bloody mess. The reality of the situation hits the arena floor, where the carnage left by her previous victory serves as a grim, silent testament to the fate awaiting the squad leader. Kai Yureng mocks his ignorance with a smug, feline grin, relishing the moment she gets to shatter his confidence by revealing the true scale of his failure. The blood flower sword drops the act, his expression hardening as he prepares to engage the girl who has systematically humiliated his entire organization. The system interface pulses with a lethal neon glow as the challenge is formally accepted, locking the two combatants into a high-stakes duel to the death. The countdown hits 0 and the virtual arena erupts in a flash of blinding energy, signaling the start of the final, inevitable clash between the past and the future. The two warriors stand locked in a silent, suffocating standoff, their eyes meeting across the arena as the chat loses its collective mind over the sheer intensity of the gaze. Kai Yureng remains perfectly composed, her expression one of bored indifference as she mentally dismisses the entire martial arts community for their pathetic lack of true talent. She acknowledges the rare skill of her opponent, noting that a late first-rate martial artist is a rarity, even if she still expects a difficult fight. Nam Dusik grips his blade with white-knuckled desperation, his internal monologue screaming that he is staring death in the face if he dares to make a move. He realizes with chilling clarity that drawing his sword against this girl would be a death sentence, his instincts screaming at him to flee while he still can. He reflects on her status as a peerless genius who shattered the peak stage barrier, comparing her terrifying presence to the monsters of his own past. He mutters to himself in disbelief, struggling to reconcile the rumors of her one-shotting his men with the reality of the immense, suffocating pressure she is currently projecting. He senses an aura that rivals or even exceeds his own father's, his mind reeling as he tries to understand how such power could reside in a mere child. Kai Yureng watches his mental collapse with a smug, knowing smirk, silently praising his intuition for finally grasping the insurmountable gap between them. The pressure finally breaks him, causing him to gasp for air as he stumbles, his body betraying his fear while the chat mocks his pathetic, trembling display. Nam Dusik stands trembling as the chat erupts in chaotic mockery, his face twisted in a mixture of humiliation and desperate, unhinged rage. Kai Yureng watches him with a cold, detached grace, offering him a single, final exchange to prove his worth before she discards him like trash. The assassination squad leader snaps, his eyes burning with a manic intensity as he accepts the challenge, fully prepared to stake his life on this one strike. He lunges forward with the full, devastating force of his Azure Wind Slash, a technique meant to cleave through mountains and shatter the resolve of any mortal. Kai Yureng barely flinches, her purple eyes narrowing as she identifies the technique with a dismissive, mocking curiosity that cuts deeper than any blade. She effortlessly raises her hand, her palm glowing with a terrifying, ethereal energy as she prepares to dismantle his pride with the iron sword 12 forms. The challenger is left reeling, his mind fracturing as he watches his ultimate technique collide with her impenetrable divine barrier. He crashes against the invisible wall, his body shuddering under the immense, crushing pressure that refuses to yield even a single inch to his desperate assault. He collapses into a state of total, existential despair, his teeth grinding as he screams into the void, demanding to know why his strength is so utterly meaningless. Kai Yureng stands over him with a smug, predatory smirk, her hand still raised as she commands him to swing his blade again, knowing full well he has already lost. Nam Dusik stands frozen as the realization hits him like a physical blow, his mind reeling from the revelation that his path to enlightenment was a cruel, calculated deception. He questions the very nature of his struggle, his voice trembling as he wonders if the breakthrough he desperately craved was ever truly within his reach. He gathers his remaining strength to unleash the boundless azure sword, his desperate hope pinned on the belief that this final strike might finally shatter the wall. The air screams as he pours every ounce of his spirit into the 10,000-li azure sky, a technique meant to carve a path through the heavens themselves. He watches the impact with wide, frantic eyes, his heart sinking as he realizes his ultimate attack has failed to leave even a scratch on his opponent. He stares in disbelief at the ordinary, effortless nature of her defense, his pride crumbling as he realizes he was never even a threat to her. He gasps for air, his composure completely shattered as he realizes the words she spoke were nothing more than a taunt designed to break his spirit. She reveals the cold, hard truth that his hope was a lie, her expression shifting into a look of predatory amusement as she prepares to finish the game. He lashes out in a fit of unhinged, pathetic rage, his movements sloppy and desperate as he tries to land a single hit on the girl who has dismantled his world. She effortlessly deflects his frantic assault with a wave of her hand, her purple energy surging to crush his final, desperate attempt at defiance. The defeated warrior coughs up blood, his spirit utterly crushed as he realizes that listening to his enemy during the heat of battle was his final, fatal mistake. Kai Yureng strikes a triumphant pose, her finger pointed toward the heavens as the system officially declares her the winner of this lopsided, brutal encounter. The chat goes absolutely nuclear with excitement, showering her with massive cookie donations as they celebrate the tactical brilliance of their favorite, ruthless cult leader. She leans into the camera with a playful, feline energy, thanking her fans for the massive influx of support while already plotting how to spend her digital fortune. She acknowledges the sheer scale of the donation mission, her eyes widening with genuine delight as she prepares to give her audience the reaction they crave. She strikes a cute, pose-heavy reaction for the donors, completely unbothered by the broken, defeated man still slumped in the background of her stream. The chat erupts in laughter at the stark contrast between her adorable demeanor and the cold, calculated violence she just unleashed upon her challenger. Suddenly, a mysterious notification pulses on her screen, interrupting the celebration with an unexpected formal email sent directly from the Seawitch Corporation. She pauses her stream, her expression shifting from playful to intensely curious as she turns her attention toward the glowing digital message hanging in the air. She reads the contents of the email with a look of growing intrigue, her lips parting as she realizes the corporation is proposing something truly world-shaking. Kai Yureng stares at the screen with a look of pure, unadulterated confusion, her mind struggling to process why a corporate giant would suddenly come crawling to her. She questions the very concept of a partnership, her youthful face betraying a complete lack of interest in the corporate ladder that everyone else is so desperate to climb. The chat goes absolutely feral as they realize the Seawitch Corporation has bypassed every standard protocol to personally reach out to their favorite, rising star. She demands to know why everyone is acting so strange, her calm demeanor clashing with the sheer, frantic energy radiating from the digital space around her. The viewers scramble to explain that this is unprecedented, noting that the corporation never initiates contact with rookies, especially not after only a single week of broadcasting. She brushes off the hype with a flick of her hair, commanding her followers to stay silent so she can finally get to the bottom of this digital nuisance. She opens the message to find the Sea Witch representative groveling for her attention, offering a laundry list of benefits that would make any other streamer weep with joy. The corporate entity dangles the promise of infinite wealth and multiple channels, but Kai Yureng remains entirely unimpressed by the shiny, hollow lure of their gold. She listens as the representative admits they are breaking their own rules to recruit her, desperate to lock down the talent that has already begun to shake the foundations of their platform. With a cold, dismissive tap of her finger, she shuts down the email without a second thought, leaving the corporate giant to rot in the silence of her indifference. Kai Yureng scoffs at the audacity of the corporate proposal, her expression dripping with disdain as she mocks the nerve of those who think they can command her. She questions the true nature of Seawitch, wondering aloud if this mysterious platform is really just a mundane workplace despite all the wild conspiracy theories. She decides to stop playing games and finally sends a direct reply to the corporate entity, signaling her willingness to engage in a formal, one-on-one conversation. With a sharp, precise movement, she taps the interface to initiate the connection, her purple eyes glowing with a mix of anticipation and cold, calculated intent. She begins to peck out a response with agonizing slowness, her deliberate typing speed leaving the chat in stitches as they watch her struggle with the digital keyboard. The frustration mounts as she realizes how tedious the process is, her aura flaring with irritation while she glares at the screen as if it personally offended her. She abruptly announces the end of her public broadcast, declaring that she will handle the rest of this corporate negotiation through a private voice channel. She dismisses her audience with a sharp command to go get some rest, her sudden departure leaving the chat in a state of chaotic, fanatical excitement. The call request from the corporation flashes instantly on her screen, proving just how desperate they are to secure the attention of the heavenly demon. She accepts the call with a smug, knowing smirk, ready to turn the tables and force the corporate giant to recognize her absolute, undeniable potential. The digital interface flickers with the corporate representative's persistent inquiry, pressing the heavenly demon for a definitive answer regarding their proposed partnership. Kai Yureng stands amidst the neon grid, her posture radiating an effortless, calm dominance as she confirms her interest in the deal. The corporation practically trips over itself in excitement, gushing about how her rapid ascent and viral teabagging antics have made her an unprecedented, must-have talent. She crosses her arms with a smug, feline smirk, acknowledging the flattery with a haughty air of superiority that keeps the corporate entity on its toes. The representative is visibly thrilled by her positive reception, their digital avatar practically vibrating with the relief of securing a potential deal with the rising star. Kai Yureng's expression shifts to one of sharp, predatory focus as she cuts through the pleasantries, declaring that there is one final, non-negotiable condition to address. She maintains her composure, sipping her drink with a calculated, slow grace while she prepares to drop a question that will surely rattle the corporate suits. The representative waits in breathless anticipation, unaware that the heavenly demon is about to pivot the conversation toward the deeper, darker mysteries of her current reality. She probes for information about her own location, demanding to know if the corporation has the clearance to confirm she is currently trapped within the demonic realm. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Martial Arts Alliance headquarters, where the legendary Blue Dragon, Kang Yunji, surveys the dwindling interest in his world with a heavy, grim heart. Kang Yunji, the legendary Blue Dragon, sits in deep contemplation, his brow furrowed as he laments the lack of true fire among the youth participating in the upcoming Dragon and Phoenix gathering. He reflects on how the event has shifted from a noble search for promising martial arts prospects into a chaotic modern-day festival where everyone competes for raw prowess. His thoughts drift to the so-called fantasy individuals, specifically those hunters who have awakened mysterious, non-traditional abilities that are currently dominating the public consciousness. He sighs, his expression heavy with the weight of tradition as he admits that in this strange, new era, one might be tempted to simply abandon all hope for the old ways. Yet he remains cautiously optimistic, noting that this is truly a golden generation and that perhaps, just perhaps, a real winner will finally emerge from their ranks. He clutches a commemorative plaque, recalling his own glory days when he earned the title of Blue Dragon by conquering that very same tournament in his youth. He vows that this gathering will be the crucible that births a hero capable of leading the next generation, his eyes burning with a fierce, ancestral pride. Suddenly, the silence of his sanctum is shattered as his strategist bursts through the doors, breathless and frantic, screaming for the Alliance leader's immediate attention. The strategist stumbles forward, thrusting a digital tablet into the leader's hands with trembling fingers, his face pale as he insists that the man must see the viral footage. Kang Yunji stares at the screen in utter bewilderment, the mysterious glowing energy of the heavenly demon Chan flickering on the display as he is forced to confront the digital storm. Kai Yureng descends with lethal grace, her purple energy swirling like a vortex as she prepares to crush the remaining resistance beneath her absolute divine authority. The Alliance leader stares at the screen, his composure shattered as he witnesses the sheer impossible scale of her power, his mind struggling to comprehend the display. She strikes with a singular, devastating motion, her aura flaring as she effortlessly dismantles the final remnants of the squad that dared to challenge her supremacy. The Alliance leader recoils, his eyes wide with disbelief as he questions the identity of the mysterious, godlike figure currently dominating the digital arena. Kai Yureng stands in the center of the battlefield, her cold, predatory gaze fixed on the blood-flower sword as she prepares to deliver the final, crushing blow. She dismisses the notion of parlor tricks with a sharp, mocking laugh, asserting that her strength is the culmination of a true, hidden dragon finally unleashed. The strategist leans in, his face etched with frantic excitement as he urges the leader to recognize the potential of this young, rising star. The Alliance leader demands to know the origin of this mysterious girl, his voice trembling as he realizes the traditional order is being rewritten in real time. The strategist confirms her identity with a sense of awe, revealing the viral moniker that has sent the entire martial arts community into a state of shock. The Alliance leader is left reeling, the name Heavenly Demon Zhejiang echoing in his mind as he realizes his world will never be the same again. The legendary figure of the Heavenly Demon looms in the distance, his presence alone enough to silence the clamor of the entire Jianghu. He stands as a monolith of power in an era teeming with masters, drawing every eye in the Golden Age toward his solitary, imposing silhouette. The previous Alliance leader grips his blade with white-knuckled intensity, his eyes narrowing as he prepares to face the monster who threatens his entire world. He lunges forward with a desperate, sweeping strike, his technique fueled by the crushing weight of his duty and the fear of an inevitable defeat. The Heavenly Demon watches the assault with a cold, piercing gaze, his purple eyes glowing with the terrifying indifference of a god observing a mortal. With a single, effortless gesture, he cleaves through the air, shattering the Alliance leader's defense and ending the man's life before he can even blink. He turns his back on the carnage, dismissing the entire display as a tedious waste of his time, while the surrounding crowd watches in stunned, absolute horror. He singles out a warrior in the crowd, his voice cutting through the silence as he identifies the man as the new Alliance leader. The Great Orthodox Demonic War reaches its conclusion in the blink of an eye, proving that the conflict was never a war to begin with. The current Alliance leader trembles in the face of this historical revelation, his spirit fracturing as he realizes the true, insurmountable scale of the power he is up against. The Alliance leader's eyes widen in sheer, visceral shock as the weight of the name finally crashes down upon him. He tries to mask his mounting panic with a pathetic excuse about a sudden stomach ailment, but his sweat-drenched brow betrays his true terror. He clutches his head in a desperate attempt to steady his racing thoughts, reeling from the realization that the legend he feared has returned in digital form. His subordinate watches with a mix of confusion and pity, completely oblivious to the fact that his leader is currently suffering from a total psychological collapse. The search bar pulses with the name that has effectively ended the peace of the old world, marking the beginning of a chaotic new era. The screen displays the vibrant, carefree face of the heavenly demon Chan, a stark and mocking contrast to the crumbling sanity of the man watching her. The Alliance leader stares at the monitor with a trembling hand, his grip tightening as he prepares to face the reality of his own obsolescence.